Imagine a war where the skies should have been a fortress for one side. A land where a nation's air force boasts 5 times more combat aircraft than its enemy. It sounds unstoppable, right? But what if that dominance begins crumbling in just a few years, showing signs of an impending collapse? Shockingly, this is no fiction. It's the harsh reality faced by Russia after years of presumed aerial supremacy. As early as 2025, experts warned that Russia's air power is on the verge of vanishing. Their once powerful fleet has shrunk dramatically, their factories are faltering, and their ability to keep planes in the sky is rapidly dwindling. This isn't grounded in paranoia but within the disturbing predictions of multiple independent analysts. How did a superpower's aviation strength turn into an imminent disaster? The story begins with numbers that seem staggering. In 2022, Russia produced just 9 Su-34 fighter bombers. The following year, this increased slightly to 13, still far below the plan for 17 in 2025. The sleek Su-35S fighters, these air superiority giants, had orders for 12 in 2024, yet only 10 were delivered, another sign of delays and inconsistencies. The goals for 2025 were set at 16, but the supply chain issues meant they often fell short. Meanwhile, intelligence confirms that up to October 2025, 41 Su-34MS and as many as 8 Su-35s have been destroyed or visually confirmed lost. The situation questions the very viability of Russia's aerial ambitions. Could a nation that once claimed total dominance really be losing its ability to produce, maintain, and operate its aircraft? The alarming decline prompts us to uncover the hidden reasons behind this rapid fall. In the last part, we saw Russia's aviation sector grappling with dismal production numbers from the Sukhoi range. Just 10 Su-35s were built in 2024. And the 2025 target hit 16, but uneven deliveries screen delays. Open-source intel confirms 41 Su-34MS destroyed. Plus 8 Su-35s, wiped out by October 2025. Can you imagine a superpower skies emptying faster than a graveyard at midnight, where once invincible jets now rust like forgotten relics, devoured by relentless overuse? Picture the metallic groan of gauges screaming alerts, the acrid stench of burning hydraulics, and the cold dread as pilots feel their costly pride crumble mid-air. This shocking fall, shaving Russia's fleet by 26 planes annually per Rands-Grammy, humiliates a so-called aerospace giant, proving even eagles can plummet when chained to cheap fixes. But what's the hidden horror fueling this nosedive in output? RAND's 2024 report paints it stark. Russia loses 26 aircraft yearly just from overuse. It's that simple exhaustion eroding steel. Meanwhile, purchases hit a paltry 20 total. Su-30s, Su-34s, Su-35s combined per year. Barely scraping parity with losses. No room for growth. The fleet atrophies. Shrinks. Disappears. Why the barren hangars? The real catastrophe lurks beneath. Russia's build relies on fragile foreign veins. Parts from afar. Tools. Gadgets. A vast web. Sukhoi craft sack in bits from Germany. France. Japan. Taiwan. Italy. Sweden. South Korea. The United States. One twist? You can't conquer worlds on borrowed wings. Consider the Karachevsky Zavod Electrode Tail Factory. Or KZE. A beating heart in the chain. It churns pinpoint electronics. Precision pieces for half Russia's military makers. Aviation. Air defense. Missiles. Named as Almaz Anti. And OAC itself. The floor hums with Japanese jewels. Sodic electrical discharge tools. EDM marvels carving with laser-sharp finesse. But April 2023 brought Japan's iron fist. Banning all CNC exports to Russia. February 2024? Titan News. These machines promise perfection for 10 years. Installed in 2017. Clock ticks now. Replacement looms soon. Micron precision fades. Russia claws for spares. Legally? Impossible. What sting does this deal to a nation's pride? Then the exodus hits brittle bones. Brain drain siphons lifeblood. Median age for military factory hands? 45 in 2021. Only 16% under 29. Youth flees the shadows. Take Professor Yuri Yukhanov. South Federal University sage. Antenna and radio wizard at 73. Ties deep with OAC Sukhoi R&D kin. His progeny, Alexander? PhD in radio engineering. Software mastery. He bolted to the States in 2007. Now a top engineer at Meta. The pattern haunts Russia's skies. Soviet-era graybeards dominate. Graduates flee low pay. I mean, a professor scrapes by on $1,300 monthly. Purchasing power lags Kazakhstan. Western lures dangle brighter futures. Shortages? 160,000 to 400,000 engineers missing. Even lowest guesstimate? 80,000 to sustain flow. Russia's talent pool is a leaking dam, trickling away as crises build. Is this the cruel irony, a nation rich in minerals but bankrupt of minds? What unbearable chill runs through echoing labs, where empty desks plead silently for the young? Fasten your seatbelts, because as foreign dependencies strangle and brains bolt, Russia's aviation teeters on a shelf-life crisis, begging the question, will homegrown fixes ever pierce the shroud of decline before every plane turns phantom? Imagine staring at a screen, watching world powers clash in the skies, then discovering that Russia's genius inventors, the brains behind deadly fighters, are slipping away like sand through fingers. Dozens of elite engineers, their fathers still hunched over rusty blueprints, are defecting to American labs and better pay. Is this the ultimate betrayal, or just the start of Russia's aerial doom? 341 characters. Previously, we explored the aging workforce crippling Russia's aviation might, epitomized by the 73-year-old Professor Yuri Yukhanov from South Federal University, whose expertise in antenna and radio devices fuels Sukhoi fighter development in tandem with the United Aircraft Corporation. His son, Alexander, earned his PhD in radio engineering and software right there at the same university. But wait, he didn't stick around to build jets like his father's generation. Alexander made tracks for the United States in 2007. Now, he thrives as a principal software engineer at Meta. Feel that sting? A lineage of innovators, fractured by lure of opportunity. A sharp contrast to the damp, oily factory air where his father labors on. This exodus isn't isolated. It echoes through Russia's aerospace realm. The core talent, old Soviet-trained veterans, rode the wave of a booming industry for decades. They studied at elite schools. They locked in steady jobs. But today's bright young minds? They spot the cracks. The writing's etched in fading paint and grinding gears. Average salaries for Russian university professors hover at a pitiful $1,302 monthly. Some estimates even place it below Kazakhstan in purchasing power parity. Compare that to Western allure, labs humming with innovation, salaries soaring like rockets. Too much temptation for skilled hands. Meantime, Russia's defense sector hemorrhages workers. Shortages scream from 160,000 to 400,000 engineers just to keep pace. Even conservative tallies cry out for 80,000 to sustain current output. Fingers tremble on tools worn thin. The stench of hydraulic fluid lingers, machines wheezing under stress. How does a nation rebuild its wings when brains and bodies vanish? And that's the knife twist in the gut. The RUSI report hammers home Russia's fumbling in import substitution for aviation. Government pushes to swap Western parts for homegrown fixes? It's a messy failure. Mixed results at best. In key areas, reliance on foreign tech spikes upward, not down. Chains of supply crumble, links snapping under tension. While military aviation wrestles decay, civilian air travel spirals into flamboyant ruin. Picture this, in 2022, right after the invasion's roar, the Russian government grandstands a bold vision. Procure over 1,000 fresh aircraft for airlines by 2030. Lines stretch, build 14 by year's end, 25 in 2023, 69 in 2024. But war's grind turns dreams to dust. Over 3 brutal years, Russian factories muster a mere 5 civilian planes. Total. Not 5 yearly, 5 ever. The whoosh of jet engines? Fading echoes in empty hangars. Hands roughened by delay, grasping at thin air. By 2025, deliveries slump to 1 limp aircraft from 15 slated. Targets get hacked down, 171 for 2024 and 2025. Slashed to a scant 21. Even those numbers? Axed further, finance wounds festering like rust on wings. Government wallets tighten, slashing funds amid delays and choked production. Why? Sanctions choke the lifeblood, veined with overseas parts. Civilian fleets, mostly Airbus and Boeing crafts, ground one by one. Up to 30 carriers flirt with bankruptcy by late 2024, a gut-wrenching 26% of passenger transport stranded. The rest scramble to fill voids, engines sputtering, seats empty. Yet Russia's attempts at local builds backfire. The Sukhoi Superjet 100? It hungers for foreign bits, the Franco-Russian Sam-146 power jets, avionics wired overseas. Absent fresh Western repairs, reliability crumbles. Engines pantosis, aircraft tremble mid-flight. Russia stretches Sam-146 lifespans to 2028 or 2029, eyeing swaps with PD-8 turbines. But uncertainties loom, air thinning with doubt. Connections blur tragedies. United Aircraft Corporation oversees all, from Su-35 fighters to 2214 liners, IL-76 transports to MES-21 jets. Announcements fudge lines, boost Su production 30%, while axing 1,500 managers. Budgets shuffle like cards, resources siphoning from civil to combat. Parts cannibalize, civil spare swapped for military fixes, and reverse. Machines whine, dual-purpose burdens breaking them faster. Factories retrofit under duress. Metallurgy plants juggle titanium for Su-35 frames and liner alloys, raw metal groaning under the switch. Government decrees demand compliance, or face jail for shortfalls. Is this strategy deliberate? A sacrificial dance, starve one arm to feed the other, then flip. Public image demands civil flights linking vast lands, a facade of calm. War feeds off military might. But scarcity breeds gambles, pivots chasing offensives. Can planners sustain this high-wire act, or will the net tear first? As engines sputter on global stages, constituents ponder, if talent flees and factories fold, what cataclysm awaits only a pivot away? Imagine a country once dreaming of becoming a global aviation powerhouse. They set ambitious goals. By the end of 2022, they plan to produce over 1,000 new civilian aircraft by 2030. Yet, in reality, their factories managed to produce just 5 planes over 3 years of relentless war. Only one was delivered out of the planned 15 for 2025. How did it come to this? As the years dragged on, the targets shrank drastically. The original goal of 171 aircraft for 2024 and 2025 was cut to a mere 21 units. Even these slim hopes are slipping away. Funding dries up as the government cuts spending, overwhelmed by delays and mounting challenges. Behind this collapse lies a simple yet devastating truth: sanctions have strangled the industry. Western restrictions block access to essential technology and parts. Russia's civilian fleet, once boasting over 700 aircraft, including popular Airbus and Boeing models, now faces chaos. Since 2022, Western sanctions have barred the import of critical aircraft and spare parts. Russian airlines scramble, relying on convoluted gray market routes to keep their planes flying. The consequences are clear: airlines face potential bankruptcy, nearly a quarter are at risk. Grounded planes pile up, and the skies grow emptier each day. The government's attempt to prop up the industry by raising taxes only worsens the crisis. Small airlines teeter on the brink. Larger players look for ways to cut costs or shift blame. Meanwhile, design efforts to produce domestically built aircraft, like the Superjet 100, are hamstrung by reliance on Western components. The power jet engines and avionics they depend on are under strict export bans. Experts warn that these planes face mounting reliability issues. Russia has managed to extend engine service lives until around 2028 to 2029, but the supply of new parts remains uncertain. Without access to Western technology, the nation's hopes for a thriving aviation sector are hanging by a thread. Will Russia's aerospace industry survive the impending collapse? Or will their once aspiring dreams of flight become nothing more than distant echoes in the sky? In the chaos of Russia's aerospace industry, everything seems to be collapsing at once. Imagine the deafening hum of factories shutting down, the smell of burnt metal lingering in the air. Factories overshoot their limits, desperately trying to meet demands. How did a nation once boasting one of the world's most formidable air forces slip so rapidly into aviation chaos? It all starts with control. Both military and civilian production are managed by the same giant corporation. The United Aircraft Corporation oversees everything, from elite fighters to passenger jets. Recently, they announced a 30% boost in Sukhoi fighter production. Yet, at the same time, they laid off 1,500 managers. Why this contradictory move? Are they trying to stretch resources too thin, or hiding a deeper crisis? And the shortages only worsen. Inside Russia, factories are cannibalizing parts meant for different roles. The same tools produce components for both military jets and civilian aircraft. When these tools break, a ripple spreads through the entire system. External suppliers from abroad, Germany, Japan, France, have already cut off crucial exports. Now, vital machines are on the brink of failure. How can they keep flying when parts are disappearing, and factories are forced to reinvent themselves overnight? Meanwhile, factories face an impossible choice. To stay running, they must retrofit machinery, switching between producing jet parts and commercial aircraft components. Imagine metal alloys heated, cooled, reshaped, struggling to meet the demand when resources are overstretched. The threat of criminal charges looms large for those who don't deliver. Are they really trying to keep the planes in the sky? Or is something more sinister at play? Some experts suggest that Russia's leadership is intentionally juggling industries, sacrificing civilian flights to bolster military projects, then flipping the balance later. The goal? Maintain internal connectivity across vast distances and project an image of normal life. But at what cost? As factories grind to a halt and skilled engineers flee, can the nation really sustain its ambitions? Or is this a calculated gamble that will push their entire aerospace system into a final, terminal collapse? The game's dangerous. The stakes are soaring higher than ever. And the question remains, how much longer can Russia keep playing this high-stakes game with its own future? In times of crisis, Russia has been juggling its aviation industries like a fragile game of balance. Yet, beneath this calculated dance lies a deeper truth. The relentless strain on both civilian and military sectors is pushing them toward collapse. How long can a nation sustain this delicate act when every resource is stretched thin, and hopes hang by a thread? Imagine the air buzzing with the sound of engines, old aircraft straining under the weight of war, the scent of burnt fuel lingering in the cold air. Russia's strategy hinges on sacrificing one industry to prop up the other, then swapping roles when necessary. Civilian aircraft maintain vital connections across vast distances, ensuring the homeland breathes a semblance of normality. Meanwhile, military aviation fights its own shadow war in Ukraine, clinging to fleeting dominance. But the truth is, this balancing act is breaking apart. When resources dwindle, Russian planners believe they can delay, prioritize, and shift focus with a flick of the hand. They think boosting military production for a key offensive, then switching back to civilian aircraft, can keep everything afloat. But does their gamble hold water? The reality is brutal, the investment isn't there. With neither sector turning a profit, funding evaporates faster than it appears. Every spare part, every skilled worker now feels like a precious commodity. Consider the workforce crisis. At the Ufa-based engine plant, trained engineers are fleeing, emigrating to escape conscription and economic hardship. The same trend cripples civilian sectors. When the military offers higher wages, talented engineers drift away, turning scarce into almost non-existent. In Ulyanovsk's aircraft factory, the shortage has ballooned from 2,500 to 3,500 workers in just a few months. The plant produces both military transport planes and civilian aircraft, but with fewer hands to build, progress stalls. Yet, the deeper problem lies in the design of Russian aircraft themselves. Their doctrine was never built for long, sustained air supremacy. These planes are meant to deter incursions, support ground forces, and soften enemy defenses. Brief conflicts in Georgia, Crimea, and Syria proved this approach works, for short durations. But Ukraine? This war has lasted far longer than anyone predicted. The planes are racking up hours, dangerously close to mechanical limits. The risk isn't just operational, it's catastrophic. Are these aircraft becoming ticking time bombs in the sky? As fatigue sets in, and the fleet ages rapidly, the entire air strategy teeters on a knife's edge. The question remains, how much longer can Russia pretend it still holds control above the battlefield when its skies are filling with worn-out, increasingly fragile machines? The truth is, the country is running out of time, and the real crisis has only just begun. At the dawn of the Ukraine conflict, Russia's air forces boasted roughly 780 combat aircraft. This was a glaring advantage over Ukraine's modest 125 planes, a supposed sign of aerial dominance backed by one of the world's most formidable air fleets. But as the war dragged on into late 2025, the truth unraveled faster than anyone expected. Russia's skies were no longer secure, its military and civilian aviation industries teetered on the brink of collapse. Experts warned that this impending breakdown could become unavoidable by 2026, an astonishing turn of events after boasting supremacy just a few years prior. How did a nation once confident in its flying machines slip so rapidly into chaos? The answers are shocking, revealing systemic failures and near-genocidal losses that threaten to leave Russia's aviation sector in ruins. Imagine the scene, a complex web of supply chains stretched across continents. Dangerous. Fragile. One ban, one sanction, and everything begins to unravel. And unravel it did. Because Russia's aircraft production depends heavily on foreign parts, German precision machinery, Japanese electronic components, American technology. Take the Karachusky electrode tail factory, a hub crucial for crafting tiny, highly accurate parts used across the military-industrial landscape. But everything changed when Japan banned export of critical CNC machines in April 2023, and doubled down in early 2024. These sophisticated tools, which had served reliably since 2017, were suddenly unobtainable. Without them, how can Russia keep its jets flying? The answer, it can't. The machinery slowly deteriorates. Parts become scarce, and the blades of an aircraft building machine even once relied on foreign technology grind to a halt. The result? A rapid decline in aircraft production, only 9 Su-34 fighters in 2022, just 13 in 2023, with a goal of 17 for 2025, but delays dominate. The Su-35S fighters? Russia ordered 12 in 2024, but delivered only 10, with the next batch of 16 delayed and unevenly distributed. Critical. Because open intelligence confirms the destruction of 41 Su-34MS, and up to 8 Su-35s, by late 2025. Meanwhile, more than half of Russia's fighter fleet is over 30 years old, relics from the Soviet era, barely capable of sustained combat. Proven? Older MiG-27s and MiG-29s are now confined to support roles, or stored away, useless relics. What's left? Mostly aging aircraft with remaining service lives hanging by a thread, less than 20% for MiG-31s, around 35% for Su-27s. The air-to-air fighters that once threatened NATO and Ukraine are now absent, kept in reserve or falling apart. The real question, does Russia have enough aircraft at all? In an attempt to stretch every remaining aircraft, Russia pivoted radically. Their response? A revolutionary shift in attack strategy, guided glide bombs. Starting in 2023, they began mass-producing guidance kits for old gravity bombs, transforming them into precision standoff weapons. These kits, comparable to guidance modules, turn bombs like the Fab 500 and Fab 3000 into long-range missiles capable of flying up to 40 miles after release. From behind their own defenses, Russian aircraft can now strike vital Ukrainian targets without exposing themselves. Guns blazing from afar, drones, and other sophisticated electronics make this strategy a game-changer. But the deception hides a stark truth: Russia's air force is no longer powerful. It's cunning, yes, but fragile. A single technological ban or supply disruption could shatter the illusion. How long can this strategic patch hold? When will the cracks turn into a collapsing sky? The twist is lurking around the corner, a collapse that no one saw coming, but everyone will feel. The question remains, is Russia's air dominance just a mirage? Or a ticking time bomb prepared to blow at any moment? Imagine Ukraine's daring transformation of dumb bombs into soaring precision-guided standoff munitions, ranging from the formidable FAB-500 to the colossal FAB-3000, enabling strikes that glide up to 40 miles away. A chilling reality unfolded as these weapons pierced Russia's defenses, leaving a trail of devastation on military sites like the Kazan aviation plant during Operation Spiderweb in June 2025. 41 aircraft shattered in flames, the air thick with acrid smoke and the roar of explosions echoing through the night. Can Russian jets truly dance out of reach, or are they walking into a deadly trap? Instead of thrusting jet engines into the jaws of Ukrainian anti-air fire up close, Russian pilots unleashed glide bombs from safe standoff distances. They released and raced back to safety, the cold metal of controls vibrating under trembling hands. This slashed aircraft losses, yet amplified destructive power on Ukrainian lines. The hum of propellers faded into the distance, bombs whistling down with laser-like accuracy. Russia unleashed over 5,000 glide bombs in April 2025, 3,786 in July, and 4,390 in August. Production of universal planning and correcting kits surged from thousands in 2023 to 40,000 in 2024, aiming for 70,000 in 2025. But here lies a brutal twist: while these bombs dodged direct defenses, they stole precious flight hours from aging airframes. Every mission heaped strain on groaning engines, the stench of burning fuel lurking in the cockpit. Russia crafted a clever tactic that killed more enemies but couldn't halt the slow decay of its fleet. Jets flew slightly safer, yet crumbled faster under relentless use. Ukraine spotted a gaping flaw in this Russian gamble, the delicate web of manufacture behind the very glide bombs. Jets struck from afar, but the weapon kits demanded intricate precision factories. Kometa series jammed-resistant GNSS navigation modules, born in DNIAR progress plants in Cheboksary and Moscow, powered both Shahid drones buzzing toward Ukrainian skies and these bombs raining hell on defenders. Moscow-based GMPP region churned most glide bombs for Sukhoi jets, fingers dancing on scorching machinery. All hinged on precision parts from firms like KZE we dissected before, that sprawling supply chain vulnerable at every joint. Ukraine flexed its muscle, stabbing deeper into Russian soil with growing prowess. The distant thunder of strikes promised more chaos for Russia's aerial empire. Will the skies collapse in a symphony of failure, or is a shocking reversal brewing that humiliates the invaders once more? The air feels charged, hearts pounding with the weight of what's next. Imagine a web of military factories spread across Russia, vital yet fragile. Now picture precision components, delicate, irreplaceable, being targeted by daring drone strikes. In June 2025, a series of covert attacks shattered 41 military aircraft at the Kazan plant. It was no accident, Ukraine was escalating its assault against Russia's war infrastructure. Each strike felt like a pinprick in the massive web holding Russia's aerial power together. The long-range attacks evolved from sporadic acts of defiance to systematic blows aimed at crippling Russia's military-industrial backbone. As Ukraine's drones bypass air defenses, they zero in on strategic targets, glide bomb factories, refineries, and supply hubs. The effect? A cascading collapse of Russia's offensive ability. With over 5,000 glide bombs deployed monthly, even a 30 to 40% reduction in production could drastically weaken their attack plans. Critical sectors like Pokrovsk, which consumes nearly 450 glide bombs weekly, hang in the balance. But here lies a grim dilemma. Every drone aimed at destroying glide bomb facilities is one less deployed against oil refineries. Ukraine's campaign against Russian fuel sources has already shut down 20% of refining capacity. The consequences ripple through the economy, output drops, taxes rise, and social programs are slashed to fund the war effort. Economists warn that these strikes are Ukraine's most effective weapon against Russia's war machine. Yet, the price is heavy. Russian aircraft, from fighters to bombers, are also vulnerable. Ukrainian forces target launch sites, defensive positions, and logistical hubs. These weapons are destroying months of high-cost, painstaking construction, flattening defenses that took years to build. Soldiers are pushed into open terrain, their positions exposed, becoming easy prey. Analysts highlight an alarming truth: a few successful strikes on critical factories can trigger bottlenecks that take months to resolve. This supply chain disruption slows down aircraft production, affecting both military and civilian sectors. The same principle applies: interrupting key manufacturing hubs hampers Russia's entire air arsenal. Each decision becomes a brutal choice: continue attacking vital military production or shift focus to economic targets. Both options threaten Putin's regime, but the clock is ticking. If Ukraine sustains these assaults, Russia's air dominance could crumble entirely. Yet, if they hesitate, their soldiers face increasing dangers, and the battlefield shifts further in Russia's favor. The web of destruction tightens. One wrong move, one missed target, can tip the balance. With every drone strike, Russia's vast military infrastructure faces the threat of collapse, a collapse that could change the course of this conflict forever. The question remains: how long can Ukraine keep hitting these vital nodes before Moscow's entire system shatters? Imagine this: striking glide bomb factories could shield lives and fortify lines in 2025 and 2026. Yet hammering all refineries might wreck Russia's economy, shoving war's end by 2027. Every big choice pits quick battlefield wins against sweeping triumph. But Ukraine's offense isn't the lone hammer driving Russia's aerial might to meltdown. Picture the roar of engines fading, the cold bite of isolation gripping a once mighty empire. For years, Russia roared as arms kingpin, flooding global markets with combat jets. Suited for ex-Soviet states and developing worlds, these machines lured buyers: potent, accessible, easy to fix. Nations like India, Algeria, Egypt, Vietnam weaved them into their skies. The deal was unbeatable: warplanes that punched well beyond their price. Shockwaves hit hard: is China's rise humiliating Russia's fading glory? Once, China's People's Liberation Army Air Force leaned on Russian tech, snapping up Su-30 MKK fighters in the 90s and early 2000s. Craving homegrown engines, they begged for blueprints. But look now, China crafts the J-20 stealth jet, a fifth-gen beast outpacing Russia's Su-57. Their aerospace leaps left Russia's in the dust, surpassing in engineering. Exports twist the knife deeper: Russia peddled value, now China undercuts with similar firepower. Their fourth-gen J-10 jets sold to Pakistan, eyeing Egypt, Iran, Indonesia too. Even whispers of buys from others rattle cages. And looming large, the J-35, a lean fighter mirroring Western marvels. A generational leap past Russia's creaky designs. Feel the chill: this shift isn't just trade war, it's a battlefield exile. What hidden betrayal lurks in these alliances, ready to ground an empire's wings forever? Russia's grip on aviation dominance slips through fingers like sand. In air shows and secret deals, once loyal nations eye China's gleam. Vladimir Putin, feel the sting: your jets, praised as bargains, now losing edge to forbidden cities' forges. The air thick with jet fuel fumes, the rumble of takeoffs echoing faded alliances. Twists emerge: countries ditch Russian models for fifth-gen wonders, sparking an exodus of cash and prestige. India's tie-up for J-35s? A slap to Moscow's ego. Yet, beneath the humiliation, a raw truth festers. Russia's workforce ages, supply chains fray under sanctions vice. Skilled engineers flee west, chasing brighter lives, the metallic clang of factories now haunted by ghosts. Smell the stale air of abandoned hangars, touch the rust on imported tools begging repairs. Will these betrayals snowball, crushing not just jets, but a superpower spirit in a cold, unforgiving sky? No quarter in this aerial chess. Strategic strikes on glide bomb hubs? They might plug Ukrainian defenses, buying precious time. Months of calm, for Kiev to rally, to turn tides in grueling conflict. But relentless refinery hits? They whisper economic ruin, war's forced wrap by 2027. Choices gnaw: relief now or defeat down the line? The agony? Real, clawing at leaders in shadowed rooms. Opponents chuckle darkly: humiliated Russians, once exporters supreme. Now scavenging scraps. Drones whirl ominously, tanks crumble, lessons broadcasting worldwide. Deeper humiliation stack, China's ascendance mocks Putin's projection of strength. Their J-20, born from Russian roots, now devours the mentor. Feel the pressure, engines howl, precision drills whir. But cracks show, Chinese designs rely on copied tech, vulnerabilities easy prey for smarter foes. Twist hits, Russia, cornered, spies an opening to poach back talent, luring expats home with promises. Or sabotage looms? A shadowy agent slipping defects into Chinese exports. Question burns, will this rivalry fall Russia harder, or spark unexpected revenge under starry Arctic nights? Russia's export crown crumbles, unveiling fragility. Exports to Turkey, Syria, flounder amid glitches. The scent of burnt circuits lingers in workshops. Ukraine's hints at targeting factories echo, a gamble saving lives today, but risking cascade tomorrow. Imagine sirens wailing, defenses unshakable, missiles raining down. Conflicts swell, economic knockout tempts bold strikes. Aid flows from allies, emboldening Kiev. But Trump's shadow? U.S. aid linked to Ukraine fades post-2024. Twists erupt, obscure allies like North Korea pedal parts, makeshift flights flicker online. Yet, the ONU quivers. Potential vetoes on sanctions soften Russia's blows. No clear victory. Ukraine dodges, Russia improvises with clones of French-made jets. Humiliation mounts, Su-34s burn on screens globally, lessons drawing onlookers. Feel the grit, pilots sweat, controls slick in doomed flights. Will Xi's empire crush Putin's legacy, or forge uneasy pacts in the storm? The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has served as a brutal reality check for what many used to believe about Russian military hardware. Once perceived as formidable, Russian aircraft and tanks are now exposed as vulnerable targets. Military analysts and neighboring countries are witnessing how Ukrainian drones systematically dismantle Russian tanks and shoot down their aircrafts. These scenes are impossible to ignore. The echo of missiles, the screech of falling jets, the whiff of burnt fuel, all serve as a stark reminder. Countries like India and Egypt, long-standing buyers of Russian weapons, are now reconsidering their options. They've watched, assessed, and made surprising choices. India selected the French Rafale fighter over the Russian Su-57, citing performance gaps and reliability issues. Egypt, operating both, concluded that Western fighters are far more capable. The repercussions ripple far beyond those nations. Insider reports reveal Russia's arms exports plummeted by 92% from 2021 to 2024. Moscow has redirected nearly all production inward, prioritizing its own military needs amid fractured international trust. The remaining buyers face a brutal truth: Russia cannot promise timely delivery, spare parts, or ongoing support. The once proud Su-57, hyped as a fifth-generation marvel, has barely left the ground in Ukraine. Nations like Iran, desperate for replacements, eagerly awaited shipments of Su-35s. But delivery has been sluggish, and the broad fleet Iran envisioned remains unreachable. How much longer can Russia keep this charade alive before their entire military industry collapses? The answer is hiding just beyond the horizon, waiting to strike with devastating clarity. Iran's hunger for cutting-edge fighters wasn't just talk, it was a desperate bid to overhaul its outdated planes left over from before the revolution. Teaming up with Russia, Iran pushed hard for Sukhoi Su-35s, symbols of power in the skies. Yet, by late 2024, while the first Su-35Se airframes landed in Tehran, Moscow stumbled, failing to deliver the full fleet Iran had counted on. But here's the heart-pounding twist that could humiliate Putin's air empire. Imagine Israel's Operation Rising Sun blasting through Russia's vaunted S-300 defenses like paper, leaving them in tatters. Can you feel the shockwaves rippling across the globe, turning allies into doubters? Fueled by that defeat, Iran turned east, hunting for Chinese air defense systems to plug the holes Russia couldn't fill. The clang of unfulfilled promises echoed in the silence post-strike, the acrid smell of failed electronics lingering in the air. Touch the cold steel of abandoned Russian tech, what do you see? A nation scrambling, its grip on the world slipping away. Zoom out, and the ripples grow into tsunamis. African nations and Southeast Asian allies, their Soviet-era jets groaning under the strain of time, face modernization nightmares in a volatile world. Russia used to be their lifeline, flooding these markets with machines that roared with Soviet might. Now? The engine hum of Chinese copies tempts them, or the pricier purr of Western Eagles forces tough choices. The humiliation stings, Russia's export lifeline, choking on its own inefficiencies, watching billions in deals evaporate. But dollars aren't the only loss. Exports fueled the spark of innovation, bankrolling R&D for tomorrow's thunderbolts. Without that cash flow, Russia's brainpower withers. Picture it, engineers hunched over blueprints in dimly lit labs, the rustle of yellowed papers a stark contrast to the digital blast of rivals. Poor performance chases customers away, lost customers starve the labs, a vicious cycle grinding Russia's edge duller with each failed prototype. Enemies laugh, humiliated by a superpower reduced to scraps. Step back, and the full horror unfolds, a web of collapse tightening like a noose. Supply chains snap under sanctions, their threads yanked from Europe, Asia, America. Skilled hands flee to greener pastures, leaving echoes in empty factories where once the roar of assembly lines drowned out doubts. The brain drain seeps out slowly, the faint scent of departure lingering in the air, leaving behind elders clinging to fading glory while youth vote with their feet. Think tanks warn ominously, by 2026, Russia might bleed dry, its air might lose every fighter it needs. Even tanks can't escape the shadow, but planes? They're precision beasts, demanding constant care, not rusty relics dragged from storage. Pull a 40-year-old MiG from the dust, and what surges through your veins? Horror. These machines need meticulous tune-ups, not battlefield band-aids. And Ukraine's deep strikes could accelerate the nightmare. What paths remain for Russia in 2026? Option 1, cling desperately to both military might and civilian skies, stretching thin resources like overworked thread. Watch as both sectors erode. Fleets grounding in a symphony of failures, the grind of delayed repairs and mounting costs forcing a reckoning. Or option 2, the ruthless pivot, ditch civilian aviation altogether, ripping apart every part, every worker, every tool to bolster the war machine. Military planes screech to life on cannibalized bones, while civilian skies groan empty, connectivity fracturing across vast lands. The tactile jolt of resource theft hits hard, soldiers scrambling for salvaged pieces, the metallic tang of urgency in the air as domestic flights crumble. Is this sacrifice worth it? A strategic gamble to crush Ukraine, prop up deterrence, or a facade masking collapse, humiliation from pretending normalcy while the empire frays? As sanctions tighten, the bluff reveals itself. Russia's aviation heart races toward overload, the distant thunder of breakdown promising an inevitable crash. What will crumble first, the warplanes or the dream of flight? The sting of isolation buzzes louder, a provocative question haunting every delayed delivery. In a world watching closely, can Moscow juggle survival without shattering everything? The weight of it presses down, the chill of uncertainty creeping in. Pause. Feel the tension build. With civilian fleets half dead and military lines thin, Russia's choices teeter on the brink, each forcing humiliations that ripple far beyond Ukraine. Unexpected twists lurk. Will export ghosts haunt future designs, or does the cycle tighten, trapping Russia in a spiral of inferiority? As factories shudder under strain, refitted lines churn dual-use horrors. The heat of molten metal fusing tanks and jets alike. Managers sweat under threats, the sharp click of handcuffs a constant fear for unmet quotas. Yet even in desperation, pundits whisper of planned pivots, slashing civilian output to fuel offensives, then flipping back. Fingers dance on triggers, boost the war, then feign peace. But the grand reveal? This isn't just about planes, it's a nation's psyche fracturing, the sensory assault of failure, squealing tires on grounded jets, the bitter taste of defeat. Shocking, isn't it? From supremacy to specter, Russia's aviation empire humiliates itself, a humbling spectacle for the world to witness. And the cliffhanger looms, with Ukraine's shadows lengthening. What devil's bargain will Putin choose, fumble both worlds or doom the skies entirely? The air thickens with foreboding, secrets waiting to erupt. Russia's aviation industry faces an almost unimaginable crisis. The once mighty air forces, which had projected aerial dominance, are now crumbling from within. Their plan to sustain both military and civilian fleets is collapsing. The question is, what will happen in 2026 when the cracks become unrepairable? Will Russia fall into complete aerial chaos? Imagine this, thousands of aircraft grounded, engines silent, and production lines frozen. With each passing month, parts become scarcer, takeoff sounds fade, and the sky grows quieter. The military's relentless deep strikes in Ukraine could become impossible as planes sit dormant. But there are three grim choices ahead. First, Russia might cling to the hope of keeping both fleets operational, even as the maintenance backlog grows. Yet, aging aircraft without proper parts are ticking time bombs, fragile and unreliable. Would they gamble with lives to keep flying? Somewhere deep inside, behind closed doors, a battle rages. Can they stretch their resources beyond breaking point? Second, the government might abandon civilian aviation altogether. Every resource diverted to military flight. The vast expanse of Russia's landmass would lose internal connections, crumbling infrastructure, and leaving the nation more isolated than ever. The economic shockwaves would be deafening. How long can a country survive without its skies open? How many cities will be cut off from the world? Third, Russia could decide to freeze military expansion, focusing solely on maintaining a minimal nuclear deterrent. Civil aviation would be sacrificed to preserve some semblance of normality. But this would halt offensive operations, ceding the battlefield to Ukraine's expanding campaign. Could they accept such strategic surrender? Most scenarios lead to disaster, drifting aimlessly between failure and collapse. The deterioration would be subtle at first, aircraft slowly accumulating faults, maintenance crews shrinking, production lines idling. Then, suddenly, there would be mass cancellations, flights cancelled en masse, planes stuck on tarmacs, engines silent. The skies would be empty of Russian aircraft, signaling a devastating loss not just of air power, but of national confidence. This slow-motion decline threatens to turn into a catastrophe that no one anticipated. As Russia's aviation industry collapses, the war effort in Ukraine could sharply decline. The once unbeatable aerial force could vanish, replaced by a future of uncertainty and vulnerability. Could this be the beginning of the end for Russia's air dominance? Or is there a deeper game being played behind the scenes, one that could unveil shocking twists in the days ahead? But what is truly haunting is the silent question: in a world where air dominance once seemed invincible, how did they let it all slip away? The answer is buried within the collapse, an empire's aircraft, aging and broken, drifting into history. The sky silence might be the most chilling sound of all.